Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books, what a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together, what a yummy snack. PBJamz, yummy books and music. PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz, songish books and bookish songs. Tips for music teachers, interviews and book reviews. A little singing and dancing. PBJamz, yummy books and music. PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz.
Our next episode of PBJamz. We're so thankful that you have joined us. And I have with me today Erica Lyons, who is the author of Alone Together on Dan Street. And so we're going to be talking with her a little bit about that book. If you haven't read it, it's so sweet and wonderful, and you need to absolutely check it out. Get it in your library, order it off of whatever service you use online, and check it out. It's really a lovely book. So welcome, Erica. Thank you so much for being here with us. For us, it's this evening. You're in Hong Kong right now. So what time is it for you?
So it's about 9 o'clock in the morning for me. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So whenever you guys are joining us for PBJamz, we're just glad you're here, and we're gonna chat with Erica a little bit about her book. And so, Erica, just give us a little bit of background and tell us a little bit about maybe the inspiration for the book, and how you came to write this particular book.
Yeah, so it's a little bit kind of a long story, but in March of 2020, April 2020, when all of us were sort of going through the pandemic around the world in very different ways, I was sitting in my apartment in Hong Kong. I had 4 children online learning. And again, we live in apartments in Hong Kong, so we're on top of each other.
Right.
One with special needs who needs sort of supervised learning. And I was thinking, okay, at that point, I wanted to write a novel, and that really was not the time to write a novel. I had a lot going on. And also, sadly, I had lost my mother in April of 2020 to COVID. And I started kind of, while you're kind of doom scrolling, which we were all doing in those days, all day long, looking at numbers, looking at statistics, and I couldn't leave Hong Kong to go back to the US. I started to see these videos, and these videos were places like in Italy. I saw people sort of singing from their opera from their balconies. I knew in New York City, I saw similar things. People from Broadway were getting out on their balconies and just singing. And at the same time, it was also Passover. And in the Jewish world, all of our holidays are very communal. You need a community to sort of celebrate them. So, I mean, other cultures were celebrating holidays also, and it's sort of a similar experience. And I was watching in Jerusalem, people were videoing that for their seders, people were going out onto their balconies and opening their windows and singing. And it wasn't just them singing, they were singing to all of their neighbors, because there were plenty of people that were in their homes alone and didn't have this communal gathering. So I was watching these videos. So it was sort of the same phenomena that you saw in Italy and New York. And I think other places it was as well. And I sort of was watching these videos, and I thought, like, okay, we're in a really, really dark period for everybody around the world, was in a really dark period. And I thought, like, okay, these people are taking this darkness and making light from it, and sort of creating community in a time when it really doesn't seem possible to create community, because you're literally locked in a room or a house or an apartment by yourself. So I thought, if somebody can do that, on their balcony in their window, how can I take that and translate that to a page? And a picture book format, again, writing a novel seemed really challenging with all that was going on in the same room as me with online learning and the kids. And I thought, okay, let me see if there's some way I can put this on a page and into a picture book and sort of capture that moment in time. And I think that I had some reservations about writing about the pandemic for children, because I think that there's some idea that we'd all like to take this and say, okay, let's put that away and pretend that never happened. But, again, I'm still here. We're still basically almost in a lockdown situation in Hong Kong. And I think we can't do that. This is our children are still experiencing this to some extent in different places, in different parts of the world to different levels. And B, this is going to be in their memory. And this is going to be how our children, this is how many of our children, it's the only way they've experienced the world so far. So I thought there has to be a way to sort of deal with that moment that's honest, but yet also hopeful. And it just kind of came out like this. So sort of trying to capture that one moment, which looked different ways in different places. Maybe it was singing opera, maybe it was Broadway tunes, maybe it was celebrating Passover communally from your window, your balcony. So.
Right. That's awesome. Great story. So since we are talking PBJamz, talk to us a little bit about how music figures into this book.
Right. So again, about Passover and about many, many Jewish holidays, there's always a musical element to it. And musical tunes and melodies are often passed on through oral tradition. And, moving to Hong Kong 20 years ago, I didn't have to relearn tunes because I was around Jews from other parts of the world, from all over the world. The tunes and the melodies were the same. These are things that are passed on from generation to generation. So things like Passover, so much of what we call the Seder, and it's sort of a telling about the importance of telling a story is sort of how the best way to explain what the Seder is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an order to it, and the order is the same everywhere. Everybody in the world is reading the same text on the same night, at almost the same time, depending where you are in the world are, but at the same time, at that moment at sundown, wherever sundown is, wherever you are. And the first words of the Seder are sung, and it's just the order. The first words are just the order of how the Seder is going to run. And there are parts that children sing, which my book focuses sort of on this one part that's sort of typically sung by children. And then sort of this whole end of the Seder is all songs, it's just songs. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, music plays, not instrumentals, but sort of music and singing. It plays a tremendous role in it. But again, to sing, typically, I mean, unless you're sort of singing in your shower, it is a communal event, singing. Right. But so much of the Seder is really sung and needs to be sung. And again, there are parts which the book really focuses on that are just for children. And it's sort of almost the same tune no matter where you are in the world. Children sing this, one particular part of the Seder. It's typically for the youngest person in the family. It sort of gives them a role and keeps them active. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the Seder is also sung to sort of keep people active and to connect people. And that's what music does. And that's what singing does. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you pretty much answered a lot of what I was going to ask you in that next question, but is there something else that you want to tell us about how music figures into the Passover? So I'm assuming, let me ask you this part.
Sure.
So in most households, are those pieces that are sung a cappella without any instruments in most cases?
Yeah, under traditional Judaism, for the first night of Passover, you're not allowed to use musical instruments. You're also not allowed to use video recording or anything electronic. So this is again just under traditional Judaism. So right. I know that a lot of other communities, like maybe for Easter or people that are not traditionally observant in Judaism, were doing sort of these Zoom seders and Zoom things, which would be great. But if you're traditionally observant, that's not an option for you. So the balconies and the window singing really became was really, really important. So it is done without instruments traditionally. Again, there's many other ways to experience this, and people celebrate, however their family celebrates, but traditionally right. It would be without instruments. So.
Got you. And is there anything further that you would like for us to know about how music ties in with Passover?
I think that just, again, like the songs that you sing, I don't know. I think there's something about music, whether you're sort of a musical person, you're not a musical person, you might not remember the specifics of the story, and you might not remember the order that things are happening. But these songs I learned when I was a child, and I still know the songs, and I can't really sing them. Personally, I'm not very good, but I mean, like, I still know the melodies, and I can still do any of the songs from Passover, not just Passover, any of these sort of songs that I learned as a child. So I think there's really something about Passover, which is about memory and about retelling a story. And song that's really, really powerful. I think all of us can sit and sing songs that we learned as children, and especially songs that we sang every year of our lives, at this one moment with family. So I think it's sort of just this connection, whether it's for Passover or, or, it's a Christmas song or a Hanukkah, or, whatever you're celebrating, or not even celebrating, even just, sort of school songs you learn as a child. They're really impactful, and really something with memory and songs. There's a different sort of taps into a different place in memory, I think, for us.
It does, absolutely. Yeah. And my friend Annie Lynn, the musician that helped with the theme song, so she and I were talking about that very thing, about how when we attach words to the music, then it helps us remember the words better, right? And content for teachers, the same thing. Like when you attach music to something that you want kids to learn, they learn it a lot faster, a lot better, and it sticks with them a lot longer because of the music. So I think that's borne out really in everything that we do as teachers, and just in life in general, like you say. So what do you think is your favorite part of the story? I know that's probably hard to ask an author because they're like your babies, right? Every page, but what do you think is your favorite part?
So my favorite part is I really the end, because you have, I mean, I think there's a lot of beautiful moments in it where she goes and she starts to sing with her neighbor.
Yes.
The character realizes, she's meant to practice for the Seder in the story, this character Mira. And her parents, her dad's on Zoom in the living room, her mother's on a call in the kitchen, her brother's studying in the bedroom, they live in an apartment. So I can certainly relate to that. Yeah. And she goes out on her balcony and is singing with her neighbor. And I think that that's really beautiful, in that she kind of laughs at one point. So I like this part too, where she laughs and says to him, why are you singing that part? He's old, he's a grandfather. And he says, well, but I'm the youngest in my household this year. I'm also the oldest. I'm the only one, I'm alone. But I think that that's a beautiful moment. But I think in that exact moment where she goes outside, and so I sort of have her be the one who sets off this whole movement that actually happened in real life in Jerusalem. And clearly it wasn't my fictional character. Nobody really knows how it started, but it happens. But I think that one moment where she goes outside and her parents are kind of, wondering what's going on, and she starts to sing, and everybody around the neighborhood starts to sing. And again, this part that's usually sung by children is sung by everybody. Let me just get you the book, because the spread for that is just, it's, you have this idea, and it's somebody else illustrating your vision and your words. And when it comes out, it exceeded every expectation I ever had. And it's beyond beautiful. And it's just, I don't know how well that sort of translates.
That's good. Yeah.
It's like this beyond joyful picture of this child. And you have all these other people in her neighborhood. And again, like I love sort of the diversity, which is something that I really wanted. And it was just there. I didn't have to ask for it. It just was there. And you see this diversity where all these other people, again, at that own moment, whether they're some of the neighbors have children in the pictures with them, some of them are alone, some are in wheelchairs. There's sort of all different, there's different people from different countries that have clearly originated from different countries that are different skin tones. And there's a woman in a wheelchair, but all these people at that exact moment are outside. And it's just this really, really joyful moment in a time that was really difficult. They still found like, it just, and again, I love, like, there's music notes on the page, and you can just see that like everybody is alive with song. And it's so sort of like that real moment to me, because that really captured what I think that moment was like in real world, in real life. So
right. And you make a good point in that, Mira's a fictional character, but these little movements had to start with somebody in every situation, right? And even in every little tiny town, in every city, in every little neighborhood, it had to originate with somebody. And so I love that you kind of got inside the head, and those are two really beautiful, sweet moments from the book.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to give a child. I mean, again, who knows how that started, and I'm sure it's not one person, but I love the idea that I wanted to give a child agency, because everybody was feeling helpless. I mean, parents are feeling helpless, but I sort of gave this little girl, like, what can you do? You're locked in your house. And she sends a card and a note and asks her neighbor to join her, and makes all these cards for the neighborhood. So sort of giving a child agency and realizing that, we sort of all have this power to find a way to connect with somebody, and even connecting with one person, even if she just sang with her neighbor. I think that would have been a really special moment, and she would have really impacted somebody else's life. And we do, just by, sort of singing with one other person or opening up to one person. But I really I really wanted to give a child agency and show them that they can really make a difference, and maybe not have get your whole neighborhood to sing, but you can definitely sort of change somebody else's life for the better, even, as a child. So
Sure. Yeah. And I love that juxtaposition of how she's the baby in the family. Like she's going to sing the 4 questions because she's the youngest, but then she ends up being the one that brings everybody together as the youngest. So there's this nice juxtaposition of being the baby, but yet kind of being the leader at the same time with that agency.
exactly.
Yeah. And I love that. Is there anything about the book that I know there's probably lots, like we could probably talk for a long time, but is there anything like super important about the book that I haven't asked you that you really think we should know?
Yeah, I think that to mention this, my illustrator, Jen Jameson, she's in the UK. It's her debut book also, which I didn't realize at first.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So I think that makes it really special for both of us.
Yeah.
And she is just absolutely, again, when I said this exceeded my expectations, you sort of have it in your head what your character is going to look like.
Sure.
And it exceeded every expectation I could ever have. In the book, I mentioned that she's watching this cat. There's a lot of stray cats around.
Right.
And that she's watching the same cat every day because, you're watching through the same window, the same scene every day. There's subtle changes. I mean, we've all experienced it. But Jen actually put a cat on I think on every single page, there's a cat.
Oh,
and she doesn't know that I am cat. I love my children. I really love my cat. So I'm really cat obsessed.
Yeah.
And I just love that that's sort of there. But I mean, just every single thing, like how she translated the emotion and those moments on the page. And I think that working in picture books, it's a really unique process, which I think that people, I mean, I didn't understand certainly until I worked in the industry. To have this idea that you write these words and then you send them out there and somebody else is having sort of the same creative process that you had, but with your words, because you're not, again, in traditional publishing, you're not speaking, for the most case, and there are exceptions, of course, you don't speak to this illustrator, you don't know this illustrator. I mean, maybe there's, again, there's always exceptions, but we would sort of feed questions back and forth through the publisher. And I think the attention that she gave to detail, also once I sort of made it clear that Dan Street's a real place. It's not a made up. I sort of was thinking about making up a name, but I also wanted a name of a street that was accessible to English speakers. So there's some names, that are Hebrew names that you'd sort of be tripping over consonants that don't really work that well in English together.
Right.
So I wanted a really simple name that sort of worked and sort of flowed, and was sort of a rhythm for the title. I have very, very close friends that live on Dan Street. I've been out on their balcony for many occasions, and I thought it's a good name. So once she sort of realized that Dan Street's a real place, I was able to send her pictures of actually my friend's balcony and the balcony across the street. And it's so close to what the street actually looks like, but sort of in the most beautiful sort of way.
Right.
And I love sort of the attention to details about how the bricks look and what the balconies look like and the style of the homes and what would be on the walls. And again, and to make sure that it was done, especially because culturally it does matter. If you're writing about it, if you're drawing pictures or writing about another culture, you really do need to get those details right and understand those details. Mm-hmm. And I think that the attention that she put into getting those details right was extraordinary. And also just her artwork is beautiful. And again, like I had my words, but she really just took everything to this other level. So, I mean, Jen Jameson really just incredible. Like I would love the opportunity to work with her again. Really, really amazing. So I think that that's something that when you talk about your book, sort of people don't necessarily give the attention that it deserves, is the illustrator.
Yeah. So. I agree. And thank you for that shout out for her. That's wonderful. And that's a really lovely segue into my last question for you. And that is, so you said you'd love the opportunity to work with her again. What are you working on? Do you have some new projects that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I have a couple. I have two other picture book deals that are announced, and I have 4 others that are not yet announced. So I have a lot of things in the works. My 2 that are announced, I'll just mention briefly. One is with a small Jewish publisher called Intergalactic Afikomen. And the book is called Counting on Naamah, and it's a STEM feminist retelling of the Noah's Ark story.
Oh,
so it gets very wild. It's good. It's kind of, there's a humorous tone, but it also sticks very closely to text. So I think that she's gonna do an educational guide both for the STEM aspects of the story, and then also a separate one sort of looking at Jewish texts and sort of, and also the Bible and where the Noah's story and how closely it's to that. And the other one is through Carben, also a Jewish publisher, and that one's called Zhen Yu and the Snake, and it's a retelling of a Jewish story from the Talmud, but it's set in Kaifeng, China.
Oh,
So yeah, so those are two that are coming up, and I'm on submission with a middle grade novel with so which is very musical. So it's just briefly, again, it's on submission, but it's a middle grade novel that takes place in the Soviet Union, which sort of everybody's sort of thinking about that now in the 1970s.
Sure.
And the main character is a piano prodigy. She's a 12-year-old piano prodigy, and she's the daughter of the conductor of the Moscow State Symphony, and that's her father, and her mother is the concert master, so the lead violinist of the Moscow State Symphony. And it's a refusnik story, escape and sort of spies and KGB, and so hopefully something, it's on submission, so we'll see. But it's very, 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 very musical. The whole story is based on music and music cryptography, and so.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, very cool.
So lots of things. So.
Yes, you're busy. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So those of you that are, like the layers, just with Erica's conversation here, you can hear the places where things are set, and the music and the holidays, and just a lot of really cool things, biblical text. So for those people that are Jewish or Christian, and focusing on biblical text, so those are all good ways that you can kind of work into Erica's stuff. So we hope that you will do that. And Erica, thank you so much for being here. And I think Erica is going to do a giveaway of the book if you're based in the US. Is that right, Erica?
Yeah, because I'll be traveling to the US, so I can easily mail out a copy there, and it'd be my pleasure too. So
got you. Thank you so much for that. And we're going to link up below how you can do that. So check out the blog entry for how you can enter to win a copy of Erica's book, Alone Together on Dan Street, which you can hear is just a really wonderful, wonderful story. So thank you again, Erica, for being here. Thank all of you for joining us to talk about this lovely book. I'm going to link up some wonderful music below, and lots of teaching tips and family tips, as well as tips for music teachers and authors, and some writing prompts. And so all that's going to be down below, along with the yummy peanut butter and jelly snack. So check all that out, and we hope to see you next time on PBJamz. Thanks so much. See you guys.
Great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Bye.
Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz. Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. We'll see